It's been a month since the passing of Pope Francis, and the pontificate of Leo XIV continues to unfold. Here with analysis on the latest from Rome this week, I'm joined by senior Vatican correspondent for the National Catholic Register and co-founder of the College of Cardinals Report.com, Edward Pentin, and editor-in-chief of the Catholic World News, Philip Lawler. Thank you both for being here, gents. Exactly 2 weeks into this new pontificate, some significant appointments were announced, including Leo's first curial appointment. That's the Vatican bureaucracy. Pope Leo has named Sister Tiziana Merletti, the former Superior General of the Franciscan Sisters of the Poor, as Secretary of the Dicastery for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. She will serve under another nun, Sister Simona Brambilla, who was named prefect in January of 2025. By the way, the first woman to lead a Vatican dicastery. Ed, your thoughts on this appointment and what it says about the continuity of Pope Francis's vision continuing into this pontificate?
Sure, Raymond. Well, this is obviously very much in continuity with Francis. He was the one who sort of pioneered this, at putting women into these positions. It's not so unusual in the sense that the congregation or the dicastery for religious obviously is made up of religious women. So it's probably a good thing that there is religious women in certain positions of leadership there. I think the problem comes when women are put in positions of leading a dicastery. That happened under Francis with this dicastery, but this woman is not in that position. She's a secretary, so it's not such a major step, but it is, as I say, in continuity with that general push by Francis to place women and laity as well in positions of authority in the Roman Curia.
But Philip, weren't there canonical restrictions to having a woman lead a dicastery, an office in the Vatican prior to this?
Well, yes, I think that as Edward says, it's more of a break what Pope Francis did to appoint a woman as prefect of the dicastery. As secretary is less dramatic, less concerning in itself. It is certainly a sign of continuity, but then Pope Leo has made a point throughout his public appearances to say that he would be governing in continuity with Pope Francis. So if anyone expected a very radical change, I think that was unrealistic.
To counter that argument slightly, also this week, 54-year-old Cardinal Baldassare Regna, who is the Vicar General of the Diocese of Rome, he was named by Pope Leo as Grand Chancellor of the Pontifical John Paul II Theological Institute on Marriage and Family Sciences. He replaces the controversial Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia. Edward, tell us about that appointment. Will that restore the JP2 Theological Institute after, in the estimation of many, it was gutted under Paglia and Pope Francis?
Yes, it's certainly an important appointment, Raymond. It wasn't unexpected. Archbishop Paglia he just turned 80, so he was always going to quite soon. But the interesting point about this is that it's gone back to being the Vicar General of Rome, which is what it was up until 2016 when Pope Francis changed it as an exception to give it to Archbishop Paglia in order to introduce these very controversial and disruptive and destructive changes to the John Paul II Institute. So what this signifies is the urgency that obviously Pope Leo feels to make this appointment one of his first major appointments. Shows that he's keen to readdress this probably, but how much this new chancellor can change things is open to question. He does have a lot of authority as Grand Chancellor, but he doesn't have the authority that was there pre-2016 when the Pope also had direct control of the institute. So we'll see what happens there. But the key point is, I think, that whether Archbishop Paglia, who replaces him as head of the Pontifical Academy for Life,
right? Because
that is, I think, probably a more poignant and significant change that we're going to see probably in the next few weeks or months.
Phil, another important appointment was announced this week, a replacement for former San Diego Bishop Cardinal Robert McElroy. Pope Leo has named auxiliary bishop in San Diego as the new bishop, Michael Pham, to replace McElroy. Pham is a native of Vietnam, but will now serve this huge Vietnamese population in Southern California and San Diego. What do we know about Bishop Pham?
I know very little about him except what you just told me. I hope he's an improvement. And that's a diocese with a very disparate Catholic communities, and it's very interesting, as you say, a large Vietnamese community to have a Vietnamese bishop. I am in a wait and see attitude on that one, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I have one of our producers actually lives in San Diego and has given me very good reports about Bishop Pham, spoken of his orthodoxy and concern for people. So this could be a vast improvement, Will. But I'll stand with you, Phil. We'll wait and see. Moving on, Pope Leo's inaugural Mass was celebrated Sunday. He also celebrated a surprise Mass at his former post, the dicastery for bishops. Edward, over the last several years, Pope Francis rarely celebrated Masses publicly. Leo XIV has instituted regular celebrations of the Mass. How striking is this? Is anyone in Rome paying attention to this?
No, it's a good question, Raymond. I mean, that was something that was very much noticed, but not much discussed about, the fact that the Pope Francis didn't celebrate Mass, and some say that he didn't even celebrate in private. So it was really quite significant, and to see the Pope actually celebrating Mass, and sometimes in English, is, I think, a very much a refreshing change for many of the faithful. So yes, it is interesting. Nobody knows quite why Pope Francis stopped. I mean, a lot of it was to do with health, of course, but even, there was no real celebration either. Often, yeah. It was he left it to others to do altogether.
Yeah, so, he would preside and read the homilies, but not really celebrate the Mass. Phil, I know you wanted to weigh in on this. What does this mark? And I have to say, it is amazing listening to a Pope open his Wednesday audience in perfect English.
It is, and it's fun. And of course, it's also refreshing and encouraging that it's one of several languages that he can use fluently. Regarding the celebration of Mass, I couldn't help but notice that this week the Vatican announced that Pope Leo will be celebrating Mass in public in St. Peter's or the Lateran Basilica every Sunday in June. And it struck me because for 3 years now, Pope Francis had never been the principal celebrant at a Mass in public, and I couldn't understand why more people weren't as astonished by that as I was. Surely at the end of his life we understood the health problems, but for several years there he was able to make public trips, foreign travel, preside at synods, have public audiences, but he couldn't celebrate Mass. The ordering of priorities there is very curious to someone looking at the Catholic Church.
Yeah, well, it is beautiful to see, Pope fully engaged and sort of flying his papal flag regularly. And as you said, we have regularly scheduled Masses, which we haven't seen in a while. As we reported last week, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, along with their families, led the U.S. delegation attending Pope Leo's inaugural Mass last Sunday. And on Monday, they both were received in an audience with the Pope. This is the first formal meeting between U.S. officials and Pope Leo. Philip, there seems to be a sense that the Vatican may be setting itself up to play a role in diplomacy between Ukraine and Russia, and perhaps even negotiate or host that negotiation. How likely is it, do you think?
Oh, I think it's a very real possibility. It's been brooded about by enough people coming from enough different angles so that it seems to me realistic. You probably saw this week that Prime Minister Meloni of Italy weighed in saying that her government would cooperate, and that suggests to me that she's trying to get aboard a moving train. And it would be a great thing to see at the beginning of a pontificate, something that significant on the international stage.
Yeah, I'll say. In other diplomatic news, on May 19th, Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Parolin accepted an award by the Path to Peace Foundation at a ceremony in New York City. He accepted on behalf of the Vatican Secretariat of State, which he said, quote, works tirelessly for the Pope to promote justice in our world. Ed, given the Vatican's and Cardinal Paroline's record on China and the recent deal with the CCP on the appointment of bishops, might it be a tall order to say the Vatican works tirelessly for justice in our world?
Well, I mean, it is a pity for Cardinal Parolin that he's had this bad publicity over the China deal, and it's been criticised, obviously with merit, many feel, for some time. But before that, he was considered very much an able diplomat and did a lot. I remember years ago he did quite a bit behind the scenes, trying to build alliances and trying to broker peace between different countries and different in different conflict areas. So he does have that reputation, and among diplomats, he does have pretty good reputation as being somebody who can bring sides together and does work for peace. So I think it's probably more in recognition for that than anything to do with his record in China.
Mm-hmm. Phil, you want to chime in on that quickly?
Well, I think Cardinal Parolin is an effective diplomat. He was working for a pope who wanted to deal with China. And if you really want to deal with China, that gives China the bargaining advantage. I think they had the leverage throughout in the negotiations of this secret deal.
Mm-hmm. On Monday, May 19th, in an audience to representatives of other Christian communities and religions, Pope Leo said, aware moreover that synodality and ecumenism are closely related, I wish to assure my intention to continue Pope Francis's commitment to promoting the synodal character of the Catholic Church and developing new and concrete forms for an ever more intense synodality in the ecumenical field. Phil, given that synodality has to be one of the most undefined terms and one of the most controversial points of Pope Francis's legacy, what do you think that means?
I think the last time you had me on, I was telling you how relieved I would be if there were never another word about synodality. And that's obviously not going to come to pass. And it never was. Because the word is so ill understood and ill defined, the fact that Pope Leo says he's committed to it doesn't mean much to me. Again, it's a show of continuity with Pope Francis, but we'll wait and see what it means. If it means the incessant talking, discussing about what you want to discuss, then it will be very tiresome, and I doubt I will change my mind about that.
Ed, is this a continuation of the Francis Project, or do you think Pope Leo's setting up a redefinition? I mean, he is qualifying this. He says that synodality and ecumenism goes hand in hand. Well, that could just be listening to other faiths.
Yes, I think people have said that you need to look closely at his words because they don't necessarily go fully in line with what Pope Francis said about synodality. So it is interesting. It will be interesting to see just if he defines it slightly differently and tries to bring, some say perhaps a bit tongue-in-cheek, but more Catholic idea of synodality rather than the synodality that was proposed before, which many complained about, said it sort of undermined the hierarchy of the church and undermined the role of the bishops in the church. So maybe he's going to produce a sort of vision of synodality which does deal with that and tries to maintain and uphold the church's teaching and structure and hierarchy in that sense.
Pope Leo seems to include one side and then bring in the other and then walk the middle road. So he's not irritating anybody at the end of the day, but nor is he, smashing one side or the other, which does lean into the unity mission that he gave himself when this papacy started. I'll give you the last word.
That's exactly what I've been thinking and hoping, that Pope Leo is seeing himself as fulfilling the role of Peter in uniting the apostles and being the focus of unity. And in his early days of his pontificate, he has shown that remarkable ability to say things that are reassuring to people on both sides of an issue. So if he can restore that sense of cohesion and clarity and unity, that will be a great benefit to the church.
Yeah, I mean, this week he also spoke, we didn't have time to get into it, but he talked about investing in the family founded upon the stable union of a man and a woman being the foundation of society. Again, Catholic things from a Catholic Pope. Imagine that. So there seems to be that unity mission seems to be guiding his words and his actions at this point. We'll keep watching. Edward, Philip, we'll leave it there, and we'll check in with you in the days ahead. Thank you.